Hello YouTube, this is Josh from JakeJoshTeam, and I wanted to tell you guys my story. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell to support the channel. Thanks. One thing I have not mentioned yet is that while students are on their C-year assignments, we are required to complete a project that reflects our understanding of how to operate these ships as a third mate or third engineer. And unfortunately for me, I only passed 5 of the 7 C project exams, which meant I would have to complete 30 more sea days of sailing in order to sit for a retest. This wasn't the best start to my senior year at the Merchant Marine Academy, but they drew out a plan for me to get the sea days and retake the project examinations before graduation. So from the looks of the situation, everything would go according to plan. Or so I thought. Fortunately, my grades were still strong enough to allow me the privilege to compete on a varsity sports team. And when I returned back to the school after sailing, I learned that the old cross-country track coach had resigned. The school was very lucky. Their Army liaison officer was a former elite collegiate runner and was willing to step in as the interim cross-country coach. After learning about this, I decided that my senior year of athletics would be spent on the NCAA running team once again. After the cross-country season, I spent my fall break on my school's training vessel, the TV Kings Pointer, where I picked up 14 extra sea days that counted towards my sea project exam makeups. And it was a great trip, as we sailed from New York Harbor to Norfolk, Virginia, and then around Long Island. We even cruised around Oyster Bay and saw Billy Joel's house, so that was a cool highlight. Once we returned, I coordinated with the faculty about when I would acquire the other 16 days, and thankfully they had a ship close to my hometown in Los Angeles that they were planning on assigning me to during the Christmas break. This would have been the best case scenario for me, as I would get to complete the extra sea days, see my friends and family for Christmas. But sometimes things don't always work out as you plan. And for me, we had to come up with a new plan after I acquired the worst injury of my life. About 1 week before Christmas break, I fractured my right ankle and spent 3 nights in the hospital. The doctors told me that it would take a few weeks before I could take the cast off, and then at least 4 months until I could run again. My heart sank at the news that I wouldn't be able to do the one activity that I love the most, running. So, the good that came out of this is that I spent the entirety of winter break at home with my family in sunny Los Angeles. It was nice to have a break from the northeastern winter weather in New York, and for those 2 weeks, the broken ankle didn't bother me. But nothing lasts forever, and after Christmas and New Year's had been celebrated, it was time to return to school, create a new plan, and finish up the second trimester. And I have to admit, these were the darkest days at the United States Merchant Marine Academy for me. I still was responsible for classwork and keeping up with my regimental duties. Ironically, my position as a senior was the company fitness officer. My job was to help physically weaker midshipmen pass the Navy's physical fitness test so that they could graduate. And funny enough, these midshipmen that were struggling to pass the physical readiness test ended up inspiring me to make the most of my situation. Even though they weren't in the best shape now, they all had a goal to get in better shape in order to pass the PRT. So I decided that I would join them in their journey. I made a goal to be in better shape on the day I was cleared to run than before I had to put on the cast. And just like that, I examined myself and the equipment at our school's gym and made a long list of exercises I could still do, even with a broken ankle. For 4 months, I did an endless amount of pull-ups, lat pull-downs, push-ups, planks, sit-ups, bench press, dips, barbell presses, bicep curls, sitting wall balls, and various other upper body exercises. And I did them fast, with hardly any rest between sets, in order to get some cardio out of these strength sessions. For cardio, I used a row machine and sometimes a swim ergometer. I made it a personal goal to row every day until I could run again. I kept this fitness routine up along with my schoolwork and the regiment until the end of the second trimester, which was the beginning of March 2020. By this time, I was medically cleared to walk without crutches and lift up to 30 pounds while standing on both feet. But most importantly, I was assigned to a civilian car carrier vessel in Norfolk, Virginia, where I would knock out my remaining 16 sea days for my sea project exam retake. Things were looking up, but then the worst virus in all of human history broke out worldwide, and right before I was scheduled to come back to school, I received an email. This email stated that due to safety precautions, my final trimester at the United States Merchant Marine Academy was going to be held online. I was disappointed that I wasn't going to experience that senioritis sensation and the fact that all collegiate sports programs were canceled because of this virus. But I understood that the school was doing what it needed to do to protect their students. And so it was. I would retake my C project exams online, complete my last trimester online, and possibly sit for my third mate's license exam online. One thing I haven't talked about yet was the requirements to graduate from the United States Merchant Marine Academy. You see, unlike the other federal academies, the Merchant Marine Academy requires its students to graduate with a U.S. Coast Guard license. This license allows them to sail on board commercial vessels, either as a third assistant engineer or a third mate. It's a big deal to have this endorsement because it qualifies you to sail as a ship's officer, and they're very limited in the sense that you have to either attend a maritime school or sail as a laborer for 1,000 sea days just to have the privilege to sit for this 7-module exam. And the main focus of the third trimester for seniors at the Merchant Marine Academy is to prepare them for this extensive exam. Every class taken during these final months was geared towards reviewing every subject I had ever studied at the school. I remember studying navigation, astronomy, firefighting, water survival concepts, ship construction, and the traffic rules of sailing. And even though it was a lot of material to comprehend and study, especially with not being in a classroom setting, all the review helped me with my C project exam retake. With only 2 weeks to go before finals, I had an online oral examination for my makeup exams, where my proctors asked me questions about ship construction and sailing terminology, theories, and practices. To my surprise, the answers coming out of my mouth felt like second nature, and after I signed off from that meeting, I was convinced that I had passed my C project exam retake and was back on the path to graduate on time. And sure enough, just 1 week later, I received confirmation that indeed I had passed my makeup exams, which built up my confidence for my last finals week as a student. And just like my makeup exams, I scored well on all my classes' finals, which put me one step closer to graduating from the United States Merchant Marine Academy. Then, immediately after finals, my school superintendent made the big announcement that the state of New York would be willing to allow the class of 2020 to return to the campus, quarantine for 14 days, and then sit together as a class in the gymnasium to have the 7-module U.S. Coast Guard license exam proctored to us, as long as we diligently practice social distancing guidelines. At first, I was so nervous and anxious about taking this license exam that I didn't want to go back, and it took a measurable amount of convincing and motivation from my friends and family to get myself to pack my bags and fly back to New York to face the most intimidating test of my life. The stakes were high. If a student doesn't pass the license exam, they don't graduate and have to wait around for the Coast Guard to provide them with a retake. I had already dealt with one retake before, and I didn't want to have to deal with that feeling of looming failure again. When I returned back to campus, the first thing I had done to me was get tested for the virus. The school nurses shoved a long rod up both my nostrils and left me with a ringing headache. So not the best welcome back I've ever had. Then they assigned me to my own individual room to begin the quarantine process. And for 2 weeks, the class of 2020 just sat isolated from one another, only interacting when we came out to pick up our meal boxes, take showers, and use the restroom. It was hard sitting around, and eventually I needed to go outside my building to do laundry. And as luck would have had it, on my way back, one of the school officers saw me and chewed me out for leaving my building. But, in my defense, they never laid out any guidelines on what we could and could not do, When we returned to campus, as long as we were not within 6 feet of another individual, we were abiding by the quarantine practice. Of course, I didn't say this. I was told to pack up my bags and prepare to leave that night. This was maddening to me, to be so close to the finish line and to have that moment delayed because I ran out of clothes to wear. That was infuriating. I cleared my room out as I was instructed, and right before I was about to report to that officer's office, they actually came and knocked on my door, and they told me they had changed their minds and that they would allow me to stay since I tested negative for the virus. That led to a sigh of relief, until the big day came. After 14 days were up, the U.S. Coast Guard license exam began. The plan was that we would take 2 exams a day for 3 days. 1 exam on the 4th day, and any retakes would be taken on the 5th day, as long as you didn't fail more than 2 of the modules. I was sweating buckets, and probably averaged 4 hours of sleep a night throughout that week. But despite the lack of sleep and anxiety, I managed to pass 6 of the 7 modules by the 4th day. When I got the results, I didn't panic or get angry, but strangely enough, a wave of inspiration and motivation came over me, and I was ecstatic that I was only 1 test away from accomplishing my lifelong dream of graduating from a federal military academy. It took 6 long years to get to this point, and I was determined to not let this opportunity slip. It wasn't enough that I made it this far. I had to pass. I had to finish the mission. Failure was not an option. That night, I only got 3 to 4 hours of sleep. But that didn't matter. When I woke up, I was ready to go. I sat down at the retake table and was handed my exam. I read the first question and smiled, as it was the exact same question I had looked at the night before. Within an hour's time, I handed in my test and got the thumbs up from the proctor that I had passed. Immediately, I ran out of the testing center and rang the school's bell, which is what every student does after they have heard they have passed the license exam and graduated. This U.S. Coast Guard license exam was the toughest exam I had ever taken in my life, and after years of hard work, persistence, and divine intervention, I accomplished my dreams and had the privilege of participating in the graduation commencement for the class of 2020. Our class had started out with 280 individuals freshman year and ended up graduating with only 200, which proved that this goal was not for the faint of heart. And with that, we are all caught up with where I am in life, and now that I have graduated from a Federal Service Academy, I have decided to commission in the U.S. military with an obligation for the next 5 years in the service. I plan on creating more goals to accomplish. Future goals I would like to see myself accomplish is to partake in some type of ultra-endurance race event, grow the YouTube channel, and buy a house one day. As I move forward, I want to keep outdoing my previous accomplishments. I want to keep growing, because the minute you stop seeking new goals is the moment you settle for complacency. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope this video inspires you guys to keep working on your dreams, because dreams do come true, as long as you never lose sight of them and persistently work towards them day in and day out. If you agree, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more content. Thank you for listening. This is Josh from JakeJoshTeam, signing off.